in fact, a large number of you have asked me questions about our reactions to the sanctions imposed by the United States on Francesca Albanese, and I can say to you that the imposition of sanctions on special rapporteurs is a dangerous precedent. Francesca Albanese, like all other special UN human rights rapporteurs, is an independent human rights expert appointed by the UN Human Rights Council and reporting to the UN Human Rights Council. Special rapporteurs do not report to the Secretary General. He has no authority over them or their work. That being said, member states are perfectly entitled to their views and to disagree with reports by special rapporteurs, but we encourage them to engage with the UN's human rights architecture. The use of unilateral sanctions against special rapporteurs or any other UN expert or official is unacceptable.
Does the Secretary General support Francesca Albanese on a personal level?
His point is that targeted unilateral sanctions against UN officials, against UN experts, which Ms. Albanese is, are just unacceptable.
And has the Secretary General sent any communique or anything
I
to
don't know.
anyone
I
at the
don't.
U.S.?
We're in the process of answering a letter from Ambassador Shea.
Did she plan to come to New York, Ms. Albanese, in the coming
I don't
weeks?
know. You'd have to ask our human rights
And
colleagues.
if she comes, will she be able to enter the country and to access the United Nations to brief the Security Council?
I mean, the access to the building is not an issue. Access to where the UN office is, in this particular case in New York, has to do with the United States. They grant the visas. The U.S. There is a host country agreement in which they are bound to facilitate the travel of UN officials, experts, and diplomats, just like headquarters agreements that we have in other places where we have headquarters. The Secretary General is not in the business of commenting on the work of the special rapporteurs. They're independent. Those mandates are given to them by member states. Special rapporteurs, as I told Gabriel, have an important role to play in the human rights architecture. If member states are unhappy with the work of special rapporteurs, and frankly, if you look at the series of special rapporteurs who have country-based or thematic-based mandates, there are a lot of member states who are not happy with one or different special rapporteurs at different times. That's their right. But our message is engage diplomatically with the UN human rights architecture and don't issue targeted sanctions.
What is the Secretary General going to do to protect Albanese and Nabi Pillay and all these human rights workers for the UN?
Let's take a step back and look at the attacks on the UN human rights architecture across the board. There are a lot of countries who face country mandates who don't allow their special rapporteurs to get in. We had the case of Venezuela not too long ago that expelled our human rights colleagues. And I think this folds into what the Secretary General referred to 10 days ago when he spoke about the Charter, and saying that it was really unacceptable for member states to have an a la carte approach to the Charter, to have an a la carte approach to the UN's human rights architecture, which was not drawn up by Antonio Guterres. It was drawn up by member states themselves. All of these member states have put their signature to this system. Engage with it. Work with it. That is our message. Yes, sir. People need to have the intellectual bandwidth to separate anti-Semitisms from legitimate criticism of the actions of the government of Israel.
Is there any way, maybe a press conference or some kind of a briefing rather, to get a sense of really the level of cooperation by nation states around the world towards these rapporteurs?
I mean, listen, we can ask our human rights colleagues, and I think your colleagues in Geneva can ask the question, but I think you could pretty quickly look at all the country mandates that special rapporteurs have given to them by the Human Rights Council and see how many of those special rapporteurs have been allowed to visit the countries they're reporting on. And I think that number would be pretty low.
On Ms. Albanese, is it safe to assume that the Secretary General, if he had heard her say anything anti-Semitic, he would call her out on it and condemn her?
The Secretary General is not in the business of grading or commenting on what special rapporteurs say.
But if it's anti-Semitism, he would not just let it pass, right? Because
he has been very outspoken on the issue of anti-Semitism.